We're doing something that no administration's ever done. We're always letting the press join us because we're very open and transparent. We like the word transparent, but we're more transparent than any administration.
Obviously, that was President Trump. Today, he gathered his cabinet at the White House. We're going to have more on that meeting in just a moment. And news never stops at the White House. What is the huge, mysterious structure that's being built on the south lawn of the White House? Start guessing. And President Trump has a perfect record when it comes to primary candidates he has endorsed winning their elections. I'll explain that later this hour. Also today, former President Joe Biden is back in the news. Why? Well, he is suing the Trump Department of Justice. Find out why the former president is suing later in the show. And a huge breakthrough in cancer screening, the new test that could make cancer screening a little less awkward. We'll have that later this hour. And check this out. A West Virginia county underwater. This is due to construction on an artificial intelligence data center. More on that later in the show. But first, today, President Trump held his 12th cabinet meeting in 18 months of this term. To give you a little perspective, in 4 years, former President Joe Biden held only 9 cabinet meetings. Here are a few highlights from President Trump today.
They thought they were going to outweight me. You know, we'll outweight him. He's got the midterms. I don't care about the midterms. Look what happened last night. That was the prelude to the midterms. People understand it. They know that, very simple, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I'm doing that for the world. I'm not doing it just for us. I would like to have the countries we were talking about with Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and the others, we'd like to have them immediately join and Steve Witkoff is working on that with Jared and some others, but would like to have them join the Abraham Accords. It'll be historic if they do it. And I think they owe that to us, to be honest. I think, because that really would be a tremendous sign. And I think those countries owe it to us.
Would you accept a short-term deal that allows Iran and Oman to control the strait? And would they have to open it immediately, or would you be open to that happening over a period of time?
No, the strait's going to be open to everybody.
And who would control it?
International waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, so we'll have to blow them up.
And who else did we hear from?
We put in a world-class blockade, and they haven't been able to bring anything in or anything out from Iranian ports. And we know from the intel that their economy is hurting big time because that is their lifeblood.
And if there's an agreement to be made, we want that to be made. I think there's been some progress and some interest, and we'll see over the next few hours and days whether progress could be made. I just want to remind everybody, Mr. President, you know this well, you have other options available to you if that doesn't work. We want something good for the Cuban people, and hopefully there'll be a good outcome there for them. There needs to be. It's 90 miles from our shores, and having a failed state 90 miles from our shores is a threat to the national security of the United States.
Former White House Chief of Staff and former member of Congress from North Carolina, Mark Meadows, joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir. And do you have any sense of what the president's strategy is in Iran? Because sometimes it seems like we're close to deals. Sometimes it seems like we're going to blow them up. Sometimes it seems other people are helping us. Iran then reports all sorts of different things that are in conflict with what's coming out of Washington. So how do you describe the president's strategy?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing that we have, Greta, is that as you saw that dialogue going on there in the cabinet, and transparency is a key word. I can tell you normally what you get is a photo op with a president's cabinet. Here you get it live streaming in real time. But probably the biggest thing, the two takeaways from that as it deals with Iran is this. You heard Secretary Rubio say there are other options on the table. That obviously means military options. It certainly means sanctions. It can mean a number of things, but that's a very clear clarion call to Iranian people that are looking, those that are in the government, to say, listen, we've got plenty of options. We're not going to take a bad deal. The second thing that you heard there was obviously that the Straits of Hormuz have to be open, and we can't negotiate backwards on that. It really has to be an unconditional opening of that. You and I both I think we have talked about this before. We're very cautious in terms of believing that the Iranians are negotiating in good faith. And so I think what you'll see is you come up to a deal, and then all of a sudden you don't have a deal, and yet the president is not going to let the midterms affect that. And I think that needs to be heard very clearly to those in Iran and others in the region that think that the political pressure will cause him to bend.
Well, one thing is, I mean, Iran has a perfect record in not keeping their deals and not dealing straight. So they,
they only don't do it 100% of the time. Yeah.
Right. So that's of concern. The president said he's not going to let the midterms impact his strategy, and he seems to be he seems that he wants to be patient about this, because we thought there'd be some military action earlier that didn't happen. Even over the weekend, we wondered, and then there was a deal. But you know, not considering the political ramifications may have a huge cost, because I imagine some Republicans running for office are concerned, and even the long vision for the president, if the Republicans take over the House, he's likely to get impeached. So he may say it doesn't impact his strategy, but it does have a consequence.
Well, it does have a consequence without a doubt, Greta, and certainly if gas prices continue to remain high, it's going to make those swing districts very difficult to actually win, and that's just being blunt and hearing what I hear as I travel across the country. But I will also say that this president has been very consistent back not only in the first term, but certainly in this term, where he is kind of put the guardrails on that to say, we're going to do what is right for America and what typically will make Americans safer. And if that has a political consequence, he's willing to pay it. And even if that means that it's impeachment 3.0. Nobody wants that. We want to have this over with quickly. But his willingness to actually talk to the other negotiators in the Middle Eastern countries that have been involved really gives us hope that perhaps the Abraham Accords can be expanded, because he is showing great patience in spite of the fact that the Iranians are not negotiating in good faith.
Exactly 24 hours ago, there was a cabinet meeting scheduled for Camp David. Within about 20 minutes later, because of weather and other concerns, it was changed to the White House. But even to have it at Camp David, you know, is that just a change of venue? Or I'm just sort of curious why he would even have thought of going to Camp David, bringing everybody 60 miles up the road.
When you meet at Camp David, it's very, very different, Greta. I mean, and people think of Camp David as this unbelievable place that you go to, and it is unbelievable, but it is more like a camp than it is the White House. And yet a lot of times what he will do is actually try to have that change of a venue where everybody brings what they're working on. You got to see that in real time. So it was not just Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Rubio. You heard from Todd Blanche and the Vice President on fraud, and they're going after those that are committing fraud and actually looking at the waste, fraud, and abuse to end that in this administration, because it was largely ignored in the Biden administration. So some of that is actually tactically, when you try to meet at Camp David, it is honestly to get a more open dialogue, that you don't have cell phones are not, they're frowned upon, let's put it that way. And so it's a relaxed atmosphere, but it is one that is all business and allows you to accomplish a whole lot that you couldn't do at the White House.
Mark Meadows, thank you, sir. Nice to talk to you as always.
Great to be with you, Greta. Take care.
Thank you. Have you noticed something different about the White House? Here's a live shot of the White House. What do you notice? It's hard to miss, isn't it? Do you see the giant structure being built on the South Lawn? Well, by June 14th, that structure will be an octagonal cage. It's being built for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, scheduled to take place at the White House. This is one of the several events that has been planned around the 250th anniversary of America's founding and President Trump's 80th birthday, which is June 14th. Coming up, former President Biden is suing. He's suing someone big. Plus, do not mess with U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. What she's saying about a convicted thief inside the Department of Justice. That when the record continues.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
As a landowner, there's always work to do, but it's the land that decides what needs doing. From the backyard to the back 40, Mahindras get it done. Our tough compacts make working a few acres as easy as can be. These mid-sized powerhouses don't quit when the job gets tougher, and this 4-ton workhorse can clear a pasture by dinner. Nothing can outlive, outlast, and outdo like a Mahindra. Mahindra, outworking the field. Get 0% for 84 months and $2,000 cash back on the 1100 and 2100 series.
A Department of Justice former contractor is headed to prison. Why? Stealing government phones. His name is Javon King. He was a contractor from 2021 to 2025. His cell phone fraud scheme amounted to more than $1 million. In February, King pleaded guilty to mail fraud. U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, has some thoughts.
Javon King is 42 years old. He was sentenced today to 12 months. We had asked for 24, but the judge only gave him 12. But you decide what you think is appropriate. He was convicted of mail fraud over the theft of more than 4,800 government phones that cost the DOJ, the Department of Justice, $1.3 million. So how did he do it? What he was doing is apparently between 21 and 25, he caused the Department of Justice to order more phones than were needed, 4,800 to be exact. And he then sells the phones to various resellers. And he says to them, do not sell the phone as a whole, but sell the parts of the phone. Well, they decide not to do that. And someone who bought one of the phones sees that it says return to the Department of Justice. So the gig is up. Now he'll have to pay back every penny of $1.3 million. Javon, was it worth it? I don't think so.
King will also serve 2 years of supervised release. Meanwhile, former President Joe Biden is suing the Department of Justice. He is trying to block the release of audio recordings and transcripts tied to the investigation into his handling of classified documents. President Biden's lawyers argue that releasing the private audio interview with a ghostwriter and the transcripts would, quote, constitute an unwarranted invasion of President Biden's privacy. His lawyers add that the DOJ bears the responsibility to protect the information since it was obtained through a criminal investigation. President Trump responded on Truth Social about Biden's lawsuit. Trump posted, quote, a crooked politician. Now, this records battle originates from a 2024 public records request by the Heritage Foundation. The Justice Department says it plans to release the audios to the Heritage Foundation and Congress on June 15th. Professor Emeritus of Harvard Law School, Alan Dershowitz, joins me. Nice to see you, Professor Dershowitz.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so who wins? Are the transcripts and the audio recordings going to be released or not?
Absolutely. If not today, if not tomorrow, in the near future, what a president or a former president says in a legal proceeding can never, ever be kept totally confidential. So if the courts are smart, they would release it right away in the name of transparency. Even if they're not released, they'll be leaked. I guarantee you, we will know, we will see this event. And I think we're entitled to see it. We're entitled to see what our president or former president was like under questioning. I think that the public's right to know clearly trumps the privacy interests in a case like this when you put yourself in the public light as a president, candidate for president, former president. So I don't think this is a close case.
How does it differ from grand jury testimony of a private citizen in a criminal case? I mean, because this was an investigation by a special counsel, not a typical criminal investigation, but a special counsel. But if a private citizen testifies for the grand jury, the expectation generally is to be kept quiet unless, of course, you testify, and then there's a provision to have it released then. But how is it different?
This is different because there are statutes that clearly make grand jury testimony confidential. And grand jury testimony tends not to be leaked because there are serious criminal penalties for leaking it. This is different. This is a deposition. It doesn't have the kind of same imprimatur of confidentiality that grand jury has. It's on a sliding scale. And I think, look, we've seen a lot of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff come out, which were depositions. And courts have the discretion to release them. And if the Jeffrey Epstein case should come out, and it should, surely a deposition of a president, former president, should come out is far more important than anything anybody said about Jeffrey Epstein. So there's a lot of precedent here for transparency. When in doubt, let it out.
Well, in this instance, there's a transcript and there's audio. And I don't think the transcript is ever a substitute for the audio, any of the audio, because the question really here is, for a lot of people, is the president's mental acuity. And if on a transcript you don't read, it's harder to detect if there's a deficit or not. With the audio, it's a little bit easier. It's a real example.
Right, and with video and audio coupled with a transcript, you get a fair picture of what the president's competency is. And, I'm sure it's not as bad as his opponents think, and it's not as good as what he thinks. It's probably in the middle somewhere. There are probably some moments of lapses, which probably most people have when they're under deposition. But he wasn't assured in any statutory way that his image wouldn't be made public. And I think in the end, if you do any kind of a balancing test, the balance has to be in favor of transparency when you're a president or a former president.
All right, this is the audio with his ghostwriter. The audio with the special counsel was something different, and in fact, that was particularly significant to be released because based on his mental acuity was the reason the special counsel didn't think he should be prosecuted for mishandling of classified documents. So that was particularly important. So we knew how the special counsel.
It was one of the.
That's.
Yeah, it was one of the reasons. There was a combined reason. I mean, he didn't say he was incompetent. He talked about him, being an old man and had some serious issues combined with other problems. But the public has the right to evaluate that. And the only way we can really evaluate it is by seeing everything. So nothing should be kept from the public here. This is not like the names of kids who are making complaints about sexual abuse. It's not national security. It's embarrassment of a president or a former president who's still in the public light. And that just weighs very, very, very slightly on any kind of a scale of justice.
And I think with the prosecutor, which I neglected to add, is that the prosecutor said that if in his judgment he should be prosecuted for the classified documents, it wouldn't be till after his term, and generally things are not going to get better. We all age. It would be at that point much later in time, and he didn't think that would be appropriate.
Well, speak to yourself. I'm 87. I'm still hanging in there. I don't think I'm aging. So,
you're the exception. No one challenged. I'm smart enough not to challenge you. You're always right. Every time we disagree, I run to my office and I check and I think, yeah, he's right again.
Oh my God.
I'm smart enough.
That's
not
a standard that's going to
Anyway.
be hard to live up to. But you're generally right about the important things. So I'm always happy to be on your show.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara has resigned. This after an investigation found that the police chief had interfered with an investigation into his conduct. Here's what Mayor Jacob Fry said.
The interference itself is a breach of trust. Because of that, I informed the chief that I would be disciplining him up to and including discharge, and he resigned. I have accepted his resignation.
Mayor Fryer went on to say that once trust is broken, it becomes highly difficult to lead as police chief. The investigation stems from a 2025 complaint. That complaint alleged that O'Hara had participated in sexual relationships with city employees. Those allegations are currently unsubstantiated. Now, to judges behaving badly. A judge in Alabama has been suspended indefinitely. Why? For allegedly making racial comments and postponing hearings to walk her dogs. Judge Yeshiva Blanchard faces allegations of incompetence and causing a backlog of cases. One complaint states that Blanchard was late to a hearing because she had to walk her 3 dogs. Local hospital staff have also complained. They say docket disruptions delay care for patients and pose a threat to public safety. Blanchard also faces accusations of targeting her chief clerk for being white. She faces 7 charges for breaking multiple provisions of the Alabama canon of judicial ethics. And there's more. Another judge in the South is under scrutiny. This judge had sexual intercourse in the judge's chambers. With whom? A prominent police officer. On Friday, a national judicial panel sustained its February disciplinary decision against the judge. The disciplinary actions will remain private. The judge has agreed to apologize to former law clerks involved in the investigation. The judge's name and court location have not been disclosed. Coming up, they went toe-to-toe with President Trump and lost, and now they're on vacation. Who am I referring to? That when the record continues.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched to Newsmax.
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 Have you made the switch?
You bet I did. My whole family switched.
Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
Immuno 150 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Nobody wants to put a new roof over their head. It's too expensive. And if they can extend the life of that roof and get 5 more years or 10 more years, it's a no-brainer.
What RoofMax does is it helps people in that they don't have to spend that $15,000, $20,000 on a new roof. They can spend pennies on the dollar.
The RoofMax product was a small percentage of cost of replacing a roof.
Get your roof treated now, but pay later, with no payments for a full year.
It's time to bring your vision to life at Cabinets to Go, where you'll find our best-selling collections at 45% off. From Harbor Town White and Nantucket Fluff to Spring Hill Hickory, Montpelier Sage, Annapolis Blue, and Chalet White. In-demand collections up to 45% off now through June 9th. Shop and save on our most popular styles in showrooms nationwide or online. Only at Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
My husband is Michael J. Cardus. In March, he got a phone call that said, "You have lymphoma, it's treatable." He died the next morning. My biggest fears were, how do I financially support the kids? How do I emotionally support the kids? And then Tunnel to Towers paid off my mortgage. I felt like I was seen, that my service mattered to somebody.
Before Apoquel Chewable for allergic itch, giving dogs pills was a battle of wits.
Oh, Maria, I'm wise to your foolish game.
Is it gone?
Totally gone.
Relief for itchy dogs can be easier. Apoquel, the trusted #1 treatment for allergic itch, is available in a tasty chewable that works fast.
May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations, serious infections, or pre-existing cancers. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs under 12 months of age with serious infections or in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs.
Ask your vet for Apoquel Chewable.
Do it!
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
As the leader of the Coalition for Student Wellbeing, I believe students must be at the table when discussing youth mental health. Alongside their parents, kids are navigating a challenging world during formative years in their lives. Major life changes, academic pressures, and financial challenges can feel overwhelming. The type of stress can look really different for each student. That's why we need a thoughtful, comprehensive solution informed by young people. Get involved today at EmpowerOurFutureCoalition.com.
Immunolun 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
A perfect endorsement record. This primary season, President Trump has endorsed 118 candidates, 9 Senate candidates, 101 House candidates, and 8 gubernatorial candidates. All 118 have won. Last night's most notable winner is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. He was endorsed by President Trump. He defeated incumbent 4-term Republican Senator John Cornyn. The margin was a whopping 28 points, or nearly 400,000 votes. Hear what Attorney General Paxton and Senator Cornyn said after the race was called.
Then there's one person who I think you might know, President Donald J. Trump. When everyone in Washington told him to abandon me and abandon the people of Texas, he didn't listen. Instead, he gave his complete and total endorsement. President Trump is the leader of our party, and his endorsement in this is the most powerful force in politics.
I've spent most of my time in the Senate building the Republican Party in Texas and in the U.S. Senate, and I've always supported the Republican ticket, and I intend to do so again in this general election.
This morning, President Trump reacted to the results. He said in part, quote, "Congratulations to Ken Paxton on such a tremendous win, and to John Cornyn for having run a strong and powerful race, but more importantly, having had a truly great career. John will remain my friend for as long time to come as we both watch Ken become a fantastic common sense senator, one who's respected by all," end quote. Now, as for Paxton's opponent in the general election, that will likely be Democratic Texas State Representative James Talarico. President Trump did not have kind words for him. He compared Talarico to the cartoon character Alfred E. Newman. The president said, quote, "This week on crime, open-border Democrat can never be allowed to represent the great people of Texas. His values are the exact opposite," end quote. And Texas had another primary race that we all watched carefully, a congressman you may remember.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order.
That was Texas Democrat Congressman Al Green. Last year, during the president's address to Congress, he was escorted out of the chamber for heckling. And then this year, he was escorted out again out of the State of the Union for holding up a sign. Last night, Green lost his race to freshman Representative Christian Menefee. The reason the 2 sitting members of Congress faced off against each other in this primary was because of redistricting. Green has been in Congress for 21 and a half years. President Trump reacted to the results, saying in part, quote, "Al Green, one of the most mentally deficient congressmen in the history of our country, has lost in a landslide his seat in Congress. But I will miss that lunatic not screaming and violently waving his cane at me during my next State of the Union speech," end quote. And another person who lost in Texas, sex therapist Maureen Galindo. She became known for her anti-Semitic views. She lost by 26 points to Johnny Garcia. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me, as well as former Special Assistant to President Biden and former Press Secretary to First Lady Joe Biden. Michael LaRosa both join me. Matt, I'll go to you first because yesterday you were here and you called Paxton as winner. Did you think it was going to be this whopping?
I knew this was kind of like the outer limits of what I thought it could be. I think the Trump endorsement is always a big deal, as you talked about with his perfect record. But I think John Cornyn lost the grassroots people. You saw it years ago. He became a fixture of Washington, D.C., being in leadership, standing at those press conferences for years alongside Mitch McConnell. And he did a couple things. He did a gun control measure. He talked about amnesty and the need to kind of like find a path for citizenship. And for primary Republican voters, conservatives, he viewed it was the old guard, the old way, the establishment. They want to fight like hell. They view the Democratic Party as being full-on socialists, and they want to fight in tooth and nail, and that's why they went with Ken Paxton.
All right, Talarico.
Oh, yeah. Well, Talarico has a problem. He has some liabilities, and it's more on the cultural side, and I think the Republicans have really yet to lay a hand on him. But when they do, and you saw a little bit in this today, he did an interview with Ed O'Keefe of CBS News, and he really, in my opinion, he struggled a little bit to explain with clarity and precision what he feels about biological men competing in women's sports. He's going to have to come clean and answer that in a very clear way. And what I would suggest to him is giving a Kennedy and Catholicism or an Obama and Reverend Wright kind of speech where he confronts his vulnerabilities directly, hangs a lantern on his problem, which is that he's culturally out of touch, and speak to Texans in a very clear and simple way.
Is that sort of a tough spot, though, for the Democrats? In order to get the nomination in a lot of these races to win the primary, you've got to go, way off the charts to the left often. And the problem is how does he? I mean, can he sort of inch his way back to pick up those votes that you're talking about? I mean, does a mea culpa on some of those issues help?
Maybe not even a mea culpa. Maybe it's clearly and directly and simply explaining that you believe in two genders and that those genders should not be competing against each other in sports, in youth sports.
Get out the vote. How are you going to get out the vote? This is now, moving into a whole nother era of this midterm.
You mean like what's the Republican playbook?
Yeah, what's the Republican
winning
playbook?
Winning in all these tough races?
Yeah, especially in the tough races. But let's talk Texas. How are you going to get the? Because it was not a huge number of people who turned out to vote.
If I agree with that, I would say that obviously the biggest challenge for Republicans is the economy, right? Gas prices, housing prices, taking 7.5 years for the average person to save to buy their first home. I mean, this is what's on the minds of the American people. The Iran war.
How do you fix that? How do you? What does he do? I mean, like this. We're almost on June 1.
I don't know if you can fix gas prices because it's all been drill, baby drill, and then the war intervened. And I think it's hard for the president when it comes to food prices because it riles up farmers and ranchers who feel like they're not doing that well. I think where the president should really focus when it comes to bread and butter issues is the housing situation. I think there's a lot of steps they could continue to make. The big, beautiful bill had tons of great policy. Not all that policy kicked in immediately. They have to go back and talk about what's in that bill every day on a weekly basis. They have to talk about the concerns of voters. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to lose, right, if people are having a hard time recovering from what I would say were Biden policies. But I think that if they sustain the conversation and the messaging around Trump policies, I think we'll do better and better.
Michael, what can the Democrats do about those gas prices? If gas prices are going to be a huge issue, what can the Democrats do about it? What's their program for it?
Well, that's all you can do is blame the people in charge.
Wait, don't you have to come up with an idea
No.
You don't need an idea
No, you don't.
Just blame.
Yes, exactly. You have to make the other side unacceptable and disqualify them because they are in charge. They are responsible. At least that is the case Democrats will make, that the other side is in charge. The other side is to blame. Therefore, you should turn the keys over to us and try something different. They want to be as contrasting as possible to the people who are in power now. That's how you make the case for change.
But I guess that at some point I would think voters, they get sort of
you would think
weary. They get weary and say,
election,
"What are you going to do for me?"
Every election has been a change election since probably 2004. Actually, every election is a midterm to a
throw the bum out, so to speak. Throw the bum out?
Kind of. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. Probably, I think the Republicans were very strategic in their redistricting plan, and they've helped themselves a little bit. I don't know if it's enough in a wave year, if this is a wave year. The data doesn't really say it's a wave year yet, but the vibe and the feeling says another thing, at least among Democrats. But we'll see.
Do you worry about the House?
Oh, yeah. I worry about the House and the Senate. I think we ought to play like we're behind. We ought to play like it's 6 years into, a second term for a president, which usually history says is a tough time to do well in midterms. You see that with Obama. You see that with Bush. Those were tough elections. But there's something else here. Trump has scrambled up politics, right? And I do think there's an enduring feeling that the Democratic Party has become radicalized or too far left. So you can say that if the Democrats blame Trump, they're going to do better. I think we have a lot of running room on the damage that was done by opening up the border, for instance, and the crime and the economic impact.
I don't know how well
millions of people.
I think if the election were last year, I'd agree with you. I don't know if you still have that win.
Yeah, I don't know if you can blame the other guy. I don't know if blaming the other guy 2 years in is necessarily an excuse. I don't think it was for us in our 2 years, and even though we did inherit the most dangerous public health crisis in a century.
Which wasn't his fault.
No, it wasn't his fault.
It
But he
wasn't
also
Trump's
couldn't
fault
fix
that
it.
COVID
Was the
came.
most dangerous public health crisis by his health? I'm confused.
But it wasn't. Neither was 9/11 George Bush's fault. But he led us out of a crisis, and Donald Trump couldn't. So they had to bring somebody else.
Some
in.
might say that he led us into he went for weapons of mass destruction someplace where it didn't happen. So
But
he let us back in.
Look, whatever about COVID and the blame in 2020, the fact is the American people turned on those issues, right? And they said, wait, it wasn't smart to shut down. It wasn't smart to shut down schools. It wasn't smart
the Democrats
to shut down our economy.
The Democrats didn't shut it down.
Which is
No, this is untrue. The fact is that this revision on all this stuff, which is the American people believe that the Democratic Party wants to tell them what to do in every aspect of their life, and they're tired of that.
I want to take the last word on this. I think about COVID, a lot of people have a 2020 vision looking backwards at, about what happened. But at the time there was a lot of,
Panic.
a lot of uncertainty. But anyway, I took the last word on that. Matt Schlapp, Michael LaRosa, thank you both.
Yeah.
Fresh off his primary loss, Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie is in Costa Rica. And guess who he is visiting? Former Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has a home there. TMZ DC obtained this photo. Massie is seen with his wife. MTG is with her fiancé. President Trump has clashed with both Massie and MTG. Congress is on recess this week. Massie, who is still in Congress until his term ends in January, has said he has filed paperwork to run again in 2028, but he didn't say what office he intends to run for. Meanwhile, kindergarten students in Ohio missed their big day. They could not walk across the graduation stage. Why? Because a fight broke out among adults. Police say several adults were involved in a physical fight over seating arrangements. Officials say a 26-year-old person was taken to the hospital with a head injury. A spokesperson for the school says no students were in the room when the fight broke out. 28-year-old Jessica Anderson was arrested. She was charged with felonious assault. She's been placed on house arrest. Anderson claims she was not the aggressor and she wants the charges dropped. The school says they are working to reschedule the graduation. Great example, these adults set for their kindergarten student graduates. Coming up, this cancer is killing more people under 50 than any other cancer. Could a simple test help? That when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higby from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
This is a bottlenose dolphin, and this is the breakthrough nutrient doctors discovered that help dolphins age healthier. Now, over 100 peer-reviewed studies later, it can help you age healthier too. Discover how at fatty15.com.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Welcome to Roland Garros.
No place makes you feel so right.
Carlos Alcaraz reigns in Roland Garros.
I love Paris.
Incredible.
Why, oh, why do I love Paris?
Oh, beautiful.
Because my love
Mortgage Bunny 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Bunny 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
Dear Dr. K, I used to think I was never meant to be beautiful. I was teased because of my teeth. I didn't like the person looking back at me in the mirror. I never thought I could afford dental implants. You and your team worked within my budget and helped me feel confident in the plan we made together. I love my new smile. Thank you.
Congratulations, Cynthia.
Introducing our new lifetime warranty on zirconia arches, only at Clear Choice. Call to schedule a free consultation.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
A better heart health supplement. That's what we all want. That's why for 8 years now, I've relied on this heart powder. It's Super Beats, and I swear by it.
Super Beats is the original #1 selling beet brand for healthy blood pressure support. The only cardiologist-recommended beet brand that's also trusted by over 40 national championship-winning pro and college sports teams for cardio-powered energy.
For cardio results you can feel, the only brand I trust is Super Beats.
Try Super Beats today at human.com.
Former Attorney General Pam Bondi is recovering after being treated for thyroid cancer. According to multiple reports, last month after leaving the Justice Department, Bondi was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Reports say a few weeks ago, Bondi had surgery. Now, she's been a friend of mine for decades. She's tough, and despite the diagnosis, she's still very busy. She's been appointed to a White House Committee on Artificial Intelligence, and on Friday, Bondi is scheduled to testify before the House Oversight Committee on Jeffrey Epstein. And some good medical news. For the first time, a blood test has been added to the American Cancer Society's recommended screenings for colorectal cancer. The blood test is called SHIELD. The FDA has already approved it, but it has yet to be recommended to insurance companies to cover the cost. So what is the cost? $895 out of pocket. Division Chief of Colorectal Surgery at Hackensack University Medical Center, Dr. Stephen Albert Lee Kong joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir. And should I just say right from the beginning that this is not the best screening, but it's better than nothing, that still a colonoscopy is better?
Well, thank you very much for your time. And you're exactly right. Colonoscopy is still considered the gold standard exam for screening for colon cancers, colon and rectal cancers. But this blood test is available now for patients who are unwilling or unable to have a colonoscopy.
What does this test detect? I mean, how can this test do this?
So tumor cells shed fragments of DNA, which are abnormal relative to normal cells. And so cancer cells will accumulate these abnormal DNA fragments that can be now detected in the blood. And this is how this test works, is by detecting these abnormal strands of DNA.
As I understand it, it's better at detecting advanced stages of colon cancer rather than early stages, which of course is a problem because if it detected at early stages, you could there's more options available to you.
Well, correct. So this test does pick up colon cancers, but it's not as good at picking up precancerous lesions like adenomatous polyps, which are also easily detected with colonoscopy. So again, better at looking for cancers, not so good at looking at precancerous lesions. And it's the precancerous lesions that are important because if you take those out, say with a colonoscopy, you've now prevented a colon cancer.
Is this a lot? I don't know if you're familiar with it. There's another blood test, a Gallery test, which is a blood test that looks for little signals in your blood to see if you have cancer. Is this sort of like that, or this is directed towards colon cancer?
Well, this is looking for circulating tumor DNA, which is kind of a hot topic in colon and rectal cancers now, because we know that cancer cells do shed these DNA fragments in the blood and can be picked up. There are a couple of other companies that are trying to develop similar technologies, which are not yet to market, but soon will be.
Why is there an increase in colon cancer for younger people now? You had any thought on that?
Yeah, that's a great question and something we're all struggling with. It's probably a combination of multiple factors in terms of diet, toxin exposures, sedentary lifestyle, increasing obesity rates, and some genetic factors that we probably we're not even aware of yet. So I think it's a combination of a bunch of things that are leading to this increase.
Is there really an increase? I mean, I read about that. I mean, are the numbers rather staggering for young people?
There are. I mean, years ago, we weren't seeing patients in their 40s and even 30s with colon cancers and certainly metastatic colon cancers. And now those rates are really on the rise. And again, probably due to a multitude of factors that we're trying to piece together now.
Now, this SHIELD test, as I read, it's like 83% effective. So if you do it one day and you do it like a month later, does that increase the 83%? I mean, is this something that because the screening test at the moment, it's not a diagnostic test, right?
Right, exactly right. It's a screening test, and again, like you alluded to, it's about 83% sensitive for looking for cancers. It's not really well studied, in terms of taking multiple of the same blood tests to increase that rate. But what does happen is if that test is positive, that should prompt a colonoscopy, which again is the gold standard test.
I don't know, but 83% doesn't seem particularly high to me. I mean, if for this test, if it were like 98% or 97%, but 83% leaves a margin of error of 17%.
Oh, you're totally right. And so Cologuard, which is another test, which is a non-invasive test, it's a stool-based test, is about 92% sensitive. But again, for patients that are not willing or unable to get a colonoscopy, this is better than nothing. And in convincing patients to get screened, if someone's not going to get the gold standard test, which is what we know is a colonoscopy, at least there's something to offer patients.
Yeah, except that I guess on the bright side is that colonoscopies are more often paid for by insurance, but this one is not. So there is that too. Doctor, thank you very much for joining me, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Coming up, an American town underwater thanks to artificial intelligence. Well, that when the record continues.
Immuno 150 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Have you ever thought of getting a walk-in tub for you or someone you love? Now is a great time to take a look at getting a Safe Step walk-in tub.
With Safe Step's standard heated seat and new fast fill faucet, you can enjoy a nice warm bath up to 20% faster. And the convenient touchpad control is right at your fingertips.
Each tub comes standard with a dual hydrotherapy system. The 10 water jets can help increase mobility, relieve pain, boost energy, and improve sleep, while the MicroSoothe advanced air therapy system oxygenates and softens skin.
Safe Step walk-in tubs are built to maximize safety so you can stay in your home and enjoy the comforts of bathing again.
So call now for more information and a free no-obligation consultation.
When you call today, you'll also receive our limited time offer. Don't wait to enjoy safer bathing. Call 1-800-296-0431.
My paycheck was just deposited into my Greenlight account.
Greenlight is so convenient. We had to use a vacuum tube.
Where is it going?
Bring your family into the financial future.
Doctors recommend turmeric more than any other supplement for joint health. I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric, made with the #1 doctor recommended form of turmeric, clinically tested to support joint health and a healthy inflammation response. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
Immuno 150 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
We have a new alert, a data center alert. A lot of people are unhappy about data centers in their communities. They are popping up in towns across the country. Here's a map of all the current ones. Aaron Brockovich yes, from the movie with the same name, has launched this map on her website. Her website allows Americans to report data centers. According to her website, there are at least 4,200 sites. Okay, by the way, so what is a data center? Well, we asked ChatGPT to explain that in about 4 sentences. Here's what we got. Quote, an AI data center is a giant building full of powerful computers that help artificial intelligence think and learn. These computers work together to answer questions, create pictures, translate languages, and do many jobs very quickly. The building also has lots of cooling systems and a lot of electricity because the computers get very hot and use a lot of power. It's like a huge brain made of computers that help apps and websites work smarter and faster. So why do some people object to them in their communities? Some are concerned because all that power needed to power that data center could lead to higher electric bills, strained power grids, huge amounts of water usage, and noise and air and light pollution. One county in West Virginia has also seen this. On May 23rd, Mason County, West Virginia saw a lot of rain. A nearby data center had methods in place to stop erosion, but those methods failed, so nearby homes got flooded. Nscale is the AI company that is building the data center. It said it is covering all cleanup and repair costs. And it's time now for our outrage of the day. Neighbors in a Maryland suburb are outraged. Why? Their beloved cherry blossom trees that are absolutely stunningly beautiful were suddenly cut down. The trees along the road were around a road appropriately named Peach Blossom Avenue. So how did this happen? Well, according to the Baltimore County Department of Public Works and Transportation, a complaint was received about sidewalk accessibility. The county then discovered tree roots were damaging the sidewalks. Since the sidewalks are county property, the county just went there and removed the trees. According to Baltimore County Councilman David Marks, his staff and the county executive were not notified about the removals. He has since asked these tree removals be stopped and ordered new trees be planted. Now, these gorgeous trees are also linked to higher property values. So even if you're not a tree person, you'd probably care if your home lost value overnight because the county came in with a chainsaw. Coming up, Texas is starting to look a lot like Australia. Why? That answer when the record continues.
Closed captioning by America Tax Group. Stop IRS and state collections. Free consultation. Call now.
America Tax Group is the nation's leading tax firm that has helped millions of taxpayers resolve penalties, remove liens, and stop wage garnishments. If you're dealing with IRS or state tax issues, don't wait. Call now.
You're told to optimize, to hack. There's always a promise of a better you. But what if you were never meant to be fixed? Your biology knows how to thrive. It just needs a reminder. Armor Colostrum reawakens that brilliance. 400 nutrients, 4 seconds, 1 daily revival. This time, remember what you're made of.
AI company Palantir makes critical decisions for governments around the world. In 2019, Palantir bought $50 million in gold in case of black swan events. Not surprising what followed. In 2020, a pandemic shut down the global economy. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. In 2023, we had a regional banking collapse. And in 2026, could a 1929-style market crash be the final straw? Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Home of the No Fee for Life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots. Call now, 888-528-4290.
I know how to make slick-looking goggles/glasses, but I have no idea how to make slick-looking social media stuff.
But GoDaddy Aero uses AI to create social content out of thin air, like this one.
Walton Goggins goggle glasses are great gifts for all guys and gals.
As we mark 250 years of America, Wounded Warrior Project honors those who serve. They've given us their commitment and sacrifice. We're here to give them a brighter future. Our programs and services help warriors access VA benefits, improve mental and physical health, and thrive for a lifetime. They've given us their best. Join us in supporting them through the next 250 years of strength and resilience. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/USA250.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed. And you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Today we talked a lot about Texas politics. So who should not mess with Texas? In Waco, Texas, this kangaroo sent police on a wild chase. The kangaroo is named Bingus, of course. He escaped the Waco Wildlife Rescue, and after out-hopping police a few times, he was finally caught. It's not known how he escaped. Officers say kangaroo wrangling is becoming a routine for them. It is the second time in a year that kangaroos escaped the Waco Wildlife Rescue. Back in September, 2 kangaroos escaped. An employee had mistakenly left multiple gates open. After an evening out on the town, police caught up with those 2 runaways. Texas is one of the 13 states where residents can legally own a kangaroo. And it's not only kangaroos giving Texas police a run for their money. Just last week, police in Elmendorf, Texas, had a wild fugitive of their own. This llama was found blocking a busy street. An officer saw the llama, named Captain, as he was driving on the street. The officer then shut down the street, ushered Captain off the road. Local officials tracked down the owner and returned Captain home safely. And don't forget, I have a new podcast called Greta Wild. You like it. It's different. You can subscribe now on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or newsmax.com/listen. The one posted now is some background on the O.J. Simpson case that you never heard about. Thank you for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take is next. Stay with Newsmax.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.